Okay, I think that we're somewhere probably right about in there. And the other night I walked down here, around that off the map, and then back on and around this street here. So now we're going to be down inside to see what we can see. And I detected when I was here, it looked like some kind of a road. And here you see it right here, assuming that's it. And then it splits away there. I'm guessing that this could be a water runoff. I'll pan slowly around just to do it. That's that Main Street Piraeus. That's the church that I went into. And that's the roadway there, one branch. Frankly, all I'm looking for as I go through here is curiosities, and you wonder if that triangular portion of a temple was always on that stone or not. Little devices survive with such a small bearing point at the bottom. I wonder if this was for an individual or for a family or for the section of the museum, of the cemetery for some reason. Well, the most important people who died here, why they were important, I don't know, whether it's because they were heroes in wars or from important families or both, who knows. But actually, they're getting a pretty good run for their money. Here's some other fairly large ones on the right side. Look how nicely the walls formed here. That's original, really? After all this time, it has survived. That stone, how fragile, a memento of existence they are. The lettering in the middle one almost completely worn off now. It's funny how this looks like now a snout of a boar turned away from us. But those are actually ears and a horn of the bull, whose face is pointed almost towards us. And right here was a cult that existed from 5th century BC until around the 300 BC, 2 centuries. Interesting, with every generation, or whatever time period you want to define, people were aware of multiple religions, cults, whatever. And yet, they keep on believing. You would think finally someone would say, this is a bunch of hocus pocus. There either is one, and maybe that's why they pursue it, thinking theirs is the one, or the whole thing is a chimera. Correct, that this may be part of that water drainage system. It certainly has that look about it. But you can also see that some of the stone in here is stone taken from a monument somewhere. Walking down this great way, or whatever it's called, I'm going to walk over here and see if we can get a better look at what I think is part of the Great Ditch. It's called the Eridanos River. Interesting to imagine what these places were like in their heyday. Obviously they were just plain flat out cannibalized for their rock, in spite of the fact that they should have been holy sacred places. In these large walled off section, huge section really, was just a special section of the cemetery. Maybe this is, and we'll see an interpretive site, maybe the area where the important people and the war heroes were buried. their Arlington Cemetery. It's an old crypt with either an altar or an altar-like structure on which the casket may have sat. Like it's set up to be a somewhat rustic tomb. Can't tell whether I'm standing outside of a structure or inside one, but it appears that there were structures all the way down this wall, and in there you can see walls, so can't really be sure what all that area was. A substantial wall down there. Maybe the whole thing was one big building. Looks like a window. Easily carved material because it's just that composite stone. Apparently straight ahead of us was the Athenian gate, the most important gate of entry into the city of Athens. The largest, apparently, in the ancient world. It would have looked like. How it relates to the cemetery, I'm not sure. This is the Dipylon gate, mountain house seen from the city. You wonder if this red rock, obviously softer, more fragile than everything else, was just used as a base and then covered with another rock or painted or stuccoed or something like that. Impressive. Must have stood here at one time, eh? There before us was a relatively modest rectangular structure with a center wall, but beyond that, notice a large pillar base or column base for what would appear to be quite a good sized temple. Hopefully they'll give us interpretive site information on that. Maybe fresh examples of freshly made or freshly cut composite blocks as opposed to the older ones weathered next to them. This is all part of that entryway they described. Notice how the stone has been border worked, if you will. All of them have. And here a pedestal and the base is that long area that we were looking at. We should be looking across it when I raise the camera in this direction here. You see how that spreads out. And somehow this has something to do with it. Maybe that is that drawing. Have from here. So I don't know what this lower structure here with looks like 6 columns on that end and 4 big ones here, and then that large structure there. Perhaps impressive way, and look at how it was sloped up with that stone. Is that worn and weathered away now? And those structures behind it? Who knows? Important stood here because there's holes there to hold it in place. Plus there was probably a notched bottom to whatever sat there that sat on top of that knobby portion in the center. It was the propylon, or the entranceway into the city, perhaps, that they were talking about. It's hard to see this like this. Hard to visualize it. Pompion. And that little turtle. Sorry, little turtle. For me to reconstruct how this must have looked, but it would have been impressive, I would think. Very much like what we saw in the ancient agora. Notice this drainage path to keep water away from the temple's foundation, probably. So the bases are still here, cracked, but here, chunk of column. That doesn't look like a partial restoration. Wonder why and when. Interesting, isn't it? That pebble floor surface. That's probably a spillway control check dam, if you will, for the river. The gate was somewhere about here, I guess. Might be a well. I suppose an archaeologist can look at that pile of stone not yet reduced to rubble and fathom what its purpose and internal functions were. The awesome human labor that went into all of that you see here, not to mention all that once was here that we don't see anymore. Site of a Roman altar. Go up on top of it, so let's go see what we can see from here. Get a little sense of the spaces, at least, between these buildings or walls or structures or both. That once this wall had decorative definition, that one course, that narrow course along there, and even the course below shows where it's been worked. Just erosion has taken its toll on that soft stone. They're well, and you wonder why these existed. Was it literally to water the graves or to provide for people who used or occupied these structures? And was that fill-in rock always the way this wall was constructed? Apparently there were houses in here for some reason. It was somebody's backyard, but that's a damn big well for a couple of houses.